On that end, right here. Right here? Okay. Yeah, sorry. I think I got everybody on that. You can do it, Kermit. It'll be on you. Capital B. 507. I texted it to everybody. I said, no. Oh, well then that would be why.
Give it a moment. I have internet, but I don't have joint the meeting.
I actually liked it. I know there's a lot of.
Okay.
Are you in board docs? Is everybody? I'm set. You're set. Rick, are you good?
I'm getting there. I'll be there.
Almost, okay. You're in the way. Are you in? Getting there.
It was, yeah. David, we didn't really, it's like, it didn't look, it's
My team is in minutes.
the indoor, the bunkhouses there. So you're facing the bunkhouses are on the right and left side. And then the main mats, there's 6 mats. So you can have 6 going on at the same time. In the center is their cafeteria, it's like behind it. I mean, it's it's nice. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
and the beds are pretty high. And they're not even just single beds, they're bunk beds, but. She was a little first, she was like, she wanted someone else, she was hoping someone else was gonna go with her. It actually worked out, it was better than she knew nobody, so I was gonna go in. And then that was from an Asian show. There was kids there, there was all girls. Yeah, there's probably 6 or 8 kids like that. And I went up until like 8 so I got to high school. And it was big. She learned a lot. She learned a lot upstairs. Or see how she does.
I call to order this October 15th meeting of the North Allegheny School Board. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin, I want to thank the A.W. Beattie Career Center for welcoming us here this evening. Mrs. Blackburn and I have the pleasure of serving on the Beattie Joint Operating Committee. This is a wonderful facility with wonderful programs that is doing great things for our kids. So if you have, school-age children, they had their open house this week, but there'll be another one in the spring. Please check out these programs. They are fantastic. And thank you all in the audience for coming to join us at a different location this evening. We really appreciate it. I will move on to our calendar review. We had an executive session this evening to discuss a personnel matter. We have our enrollment and demographics reports this evening, and on October 29th, we will have our regular meeting. Starting off with our reports, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Highland.
Mrs. Warner, thank you so much. Tonight, we're going to have 2 reports. The first one is our annual enrollment report. Obviously, annual indicates that we do it every year, and so Yuko is nice enough to do that for us. We also have our demographics report. We're waiting for Mr. Steuben to show up, and we're hopefully that he's here. But if the board recalls, in January, as we started looking at the potential renovations in our district, we thought it would be prudent to make sure that we do a demographics study, just to make sure that we've dotted I's and crossed T's with regard to where our enrollment is heading in the district. And so tonight will be hopefully the presentation with that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hauser if he has anything to add.
No, not right now. Again, we're waiting for Mr. Steuben to arrive on the demographic report. But before that, we'll go ahead and start with the enrollment projections report, and you can go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. So today I will be presenting the enrollment summary report, our October 1 snapshot, and I'll go a little bit into enrollment projections, which will then lead into the demographics presentation. So this chart here shows our enrollment since 1986. As you can see here, there was a 10% rise per year in the late 1990s, and then again some growth here during the housing development boom between 2015 to 2019. Followed by a small decline during the pandemic. We are at 8622 students. As of October 1st, we are at 8,622 students, which is up 9 from last year. And it is the highest enrollment number since 2019-2020 school year. All right, this is the same information in an annual change format, and as you can see here, sorry about that. through. As you can see here, we're really just 9 above last year. We're at a very stable point in enrollment. This is our enrollment by grade level and school. As you can see, enrollment at the elementary level is on a slight decline, and it is because we had a large cohort that was in 5th grade last year who moved into 6th grade this year. And as a result of that, you can see higher enrollment increases at the middle school. All other levels are relatively stable. Right? This shows the enrollment summary numbers as of October 1st compared to last year. Total increase of 9. Again, decrease at the elementary level, which is the cohort moving up to middle school, and other levels are relatively stable. Right? This chart shows student enrollment by school level. This year, I've incorporated NACA and NAE placement in addition to the school level, so we can kind of get an overall picture of where we are at with student enrollment. Same trend that we saw, less decrease in elementary, increase in middle school levels, and NACA and NAE placement represents special education students that are privately educated, but are our students. Those levels remained relatively stable through the years. You can see a larger number of NACA students in the 2021-22 school year. Prior to that, when NACA was synchronous and NA teachers were teaching our students, those during that time, they were considered students of our own buildings. That's why you don't see NACA enrollment during the pandemic year in 2019, 2020, and 2021. Okay. This graphic shows non-public, cyber charter, and homeschool enrollment. This year, we've had a slight increase in homeschool enrollment by 14 students. Cyber charter enrollment remains relatively the same. 576 is the number of students that we transport to non-public schools, so private parochial schools. This does not represent all of the students that are resident students that attend a non-public program, just the ones that we transport. Student demographic. Here are the race and ethnicity chart shows slow increase in diversity over the years. Percentages remain relatively similar, but tending towards higher diversity. This chart shows special education enrollment through all of the school years that we have on record through our Pennsylvania Department of Education's PIMS program. And as you can see here, we've had the largest increase in special education students between last school year and this school year. And that total was 136 additional students in special education, which brings our percentage to 15.3% of district students that are in special education, bringing up the percentage closer to the intermediate unit average and the state average. This table displays special education students by exceptionality. As you can see here, specific learning disability, speech or language impairment, autism, and emotional disturbance, we've had higher enrollment for special education through the years. Okay. This chart shows English language development enrollment. This year, for the first time since right around the pandemic, we've seen a drop in student enrollment for English language development. This year, I've broken down the chart by the type of English language development. As you can see, a lot of students are opting for consult only. There's parent refusal, of course, each year, but overall, we've seen a decline of the number of students enrolled in English language development. Okay. Overall, 85 unique languages are spoken at home throughout the school district of the students enrolled in English language development. These are the languages most spoken at home this school year. For the students enrolled in English language development, the highest number of students speak Chinese Mandarin at home, followed by Spanish, Telugu, and Russian. We did our own in-house enrollment projection, and for that, we used Pennsylvania Department of Health birth data projections for 2 years. That was provided also on the same website, as well as historical enrollment data that was used to calculate the 5%, the 5-year average of cohort survival rate. This chart displays live birth data in our 4 municipalities over the years. As you can see, we are, in 2024, we had 425 live births. We don't have data for 2025 yet, but there is a linear decline in the birth rate immediately following the pandemic year. This is the projection from the Pennsylvania Department of Health for the next year, so 2025 and 2026. There's also a projected linear decline in live births. This chart shows historical enrollment by grade level. This data is used to calculate the cohort survival rate. And as you can see within the blue bands, these are the larger cohort of students that are moving up through the grade levels. So moving into middle school and into high school. Typically, our kindergarten enrollment is lower. Due to the half-day program, we see a bump in first grade, but this year our kindergarten enrollment has been low at 480. The cohort survival ratio calculated off of that, we have a very stable cohort survival ratio at or around 100% most of the years and through the different cohorts. And if you look at the student retention by cohort grad year, so the graduation year cohorts, you can see that is also stable at or around 100%. If you look at this bottom level here, this captures the birth to K kindergarten capture ratio. So comparing the live birth data to how many students that enroll in kindergarten. And so if you look at that, we're seeing very high numbers between 2015 to 2019 timeframe, and that coincides with the housing development boom. And that's slowly declining over here. As you can see, this year we're seeing a very low rate of 97% for the birth to kindergarten capture ratio. This is our in-house projection for the upcoming school years based on that 5-year average cohort survival ratio. If the live births don't increase, we don't see these numbers increasing maybe for the next few years. As our students move up through the grade levels, we'll see continued slight rise in enrollment, followed by some decline due to the birth rate. All right, and if we increase or decrease the live birth by around 45 to 50 each year, these are the projected enrollments for the upcoming school year. It is still tending towards declining enrollment. In summary, enrollment levels are stable for 2025-2026. It's the second highest enrollment historically to date. Enrollment trends showing changing demographics as in special education, English learner enrollment are expected to continue. And as you saw in the projection charts, downward trend is expected for enrollment in the coming years.
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Wong. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments on this report? Dr. Gibbs.
Yeah, one quick question. So I take it that the projections don't take into account any expected increases in development that would bring in additional families? It only takes into account the birth rate, is that right?
That is not the case as you saw in the cohort survival ratio. That percentage is, that the housing development is baked into the survival ratio over the school years. As we saw, enrollment rising through those years, and those students are moving through the school years. So that's already baked in. If we add additional, it wouldn't be as realistic. That 100% plus cohort survival ratio already accounts for that.
So is it assuming that the rate of development is going to be constant? Is that the assumption?
No, the development is slowing. And so that just takes into account all of the historical development ups and downs as well.
Thank you.
Mrs. Blackburn.
I'm just sort of curious that when I was looking at our school district enrollment since '86, I know our largest class ever in North Allegheny was back in the mid-'70s. And, you know, I certainly was in as large of a class as we have now. So I'm sort of wondering how it was so much lower in those, you know, mid to 80s to 90s. It's somewhat shocking to me. How could we be 200 people off when the even larger classes were just a little bit earlier? What do we think happened? Were they a lot more kids going to private schools? I'm just wondering how that could be. Or is it that when we used to just add the high school for things, there's something on with 200 being off there, knowing that it used to be larger.
I don't know that it used to be larger. This is the data, the enrollment data we have on file. What I can share is there was a larger group of students attending private parochial schools in the early 2000s, but that's as much data as I have.
That's quite a difference, knowing that our biggest classes were even earlier. I just sort of wondered what happened there, because that makes a big difference in all projections. You're trying to figure out how could it be so low and yet higher. I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Blackburn, we should go back and check that and make sure that that's accurate. I don't know if it's just counting 10th, 9th, like 11th and 12th graders or not, but that's something I think we need to go back.
That's what I was saying. Are they only doing, remember where we had
Oh, yeah.
those glitches and they didn't count that's what I
I
wanted.
think we need to go back and check that. And
Thank
we'll
you.
report back to you.
Thank you.
We have, in terms of accuracy, we can go back to all of the data that we have submitted to the state since 2012, 2013. Prior to that, I'm basing it off the same numbers that were.
He knows what I'm saying. If we left off NAI, for instance, he knows what I was talking about. We can move on. Thank you.
Mr. McClure.
Thank you, Mrs. Werner. Interesting. If you go to slide 7 and 8, you don't really need to go there. It's hard to track. Our total enrollment now of 8622. If you take that and you add in slide 8, the 849 kids who aren't in our schools, you come up with 9471. Quick math, I might be off by a few numbers. What's interesting is you go 10 years back, 2013, that total was 9433. Since then, it's been 9355. My point is, and maybe this is a question for the demographer rather than you. I don't know if there's any. We're maybe suffering from our own success in that the reduction in parochial schools probably directly, I would think. That is there a trend there? Is that something that we maybe are expecting long term? And maybe that's a question for Mr. Snowman when he comes up, because I'm asking more of a big picture thought. But what's interesting is how consistent the total number of school-age children are in our district. So if you can answer that, great. If not, we'll pose that when Mr. Stewart.
Yes, please. I did look at migration data in all of Allegheny County, not necessarily just the 4 municipal areas that we live in. There has been some net increase due to immigration from outside of Pennsylvania, but the net trend is immigration out of this area. So I would think that your guess,
I'd be curious to learn, if there's a long-term trend expected that the parochial schools maybe are going to continue to reduce, or we're just so good that people want to come here instead.
Right, and also do note that that number is just the ones that we transport. And so there are many families that drive their own kids to their private schools.
No,
We're
that's
probably
interesting.
missing quite a few students in there that we're not transporting.
That's an interesting clarification. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mrs. Blackburn?
I just, so this is only the people we're transporting? Is what you're saying? I thought this
the
was
private
total enrollment here.
Yes, this is total enrollment.
Okay.
I was referring to the private,
Okay, a different slide.
this, sorry.
Okay.
This one where the private parochial schools number, this is just the ones we transport.
Yes.
Then if that's what that slide is, how does it account for the homeschool kids? We're not
Homeschool kids, the families do need to submit a homeschool affidavit to the district. So we have an accurate count of homeschool students.
Okay, so the parochial school would be the uncertainty, but the homeschool kids would be an active number. Okay, thank you.
So, Ms. Warner.
Mr. Winter?
So if we were to look at this slide, plus the total enrollment slide, that's going to give us a general picture of the total student age population. So it has been a trend since 2010, an overall decline in student age children in the district. Is that fair?
Yes.
Anyone else? Ms. Wong, thank you so much. I really appreciate the different types of graphs and charts that you put in this presentation. Maybe I missed it previously, but I think this special education students by exceptionality is new, or newer at least, and I really appreciated the breakdown by different types of exceptionality. It was interesting for me to learn how many types of students were in different groups and which types were most prevalent. And I was also pleased to see that the cyber charter enrollment that we had the last 3 years have been our lowest since 2009. So that's a good thing for the district that to see those numbers lower. But excellent presentation. Really appreciate the time that you put into putting it together. Thank you so much. Dr. Hunt.
Mr. Hauser, thank you, Yuka. As we said earlier, one of the things that gave us concern is what was the population going to be like at Marshall, out in the Marshall area? Was it going to continue to grow? And how would that impact our renovations and our construction? And so we thought it was important to make sure that we dove down and we made sure we were as accurate as we possibly could before we went in and we start putting renovations on elementary schools, that we right-sized our schools for the demographics reports. And so that's why Mr. Stuman's here, and that's why Kermit's going to do.
Thank you, Dr. Wyman. Yes, and as you can see, we do track a lot of our enrollment and projections internally. We also look for an external source, especially when we're looking out 5-10 years. Last winter, the board had approved to reach out to Mr. Stuman, who has performed a demographic study for North Allegheny in 2019 and then gave a refresh in 2022 before redistricting. And he is one of the well-renowned experts in Western Pennsylvania for K through 12 demographic studies. And he came through some results, which you're going to see is pretty similar to what Ms. Wong presented. Obviously, some different formulas, different assumptions. And I believe you all have the results of that, but here to walk us through his methodology and his expectations over the next 10 years while we're in construction is Mr. Stuman. Thank you.
I guess I have a little bit different take on what's gonna happen birth-wise.
You can look at that one, that's right down.
Right, so the bottom line is it only takes one parameter. It's good skewed to blow a simulation and a forecast. And so let's take the state data, for example. State PDE, which nobody relies on at the end game, but they have to do 500 of these projections, so you can't hold them accountable for not taking housing into account, which is where I come in many cases. We've looked at housing every time I've been working for you. And there is a lot of housing that has gone on. Right now it's centered in Marshall, but Franklin Park was not far behind until recently. There's a lot of single families. Anyway, if you take a look at the birth data, averaged over 5 years and so on, it looks like it's constant for 2 decades. A little bit of loss recently, but not much. And so if you take the weighted average instead of just the raw numbers, you'll get a 498.9, I believe it is, which is in effect 500 births a year. That's occurred recently. It dropped down to 497, but it's not what the state believes that their assumption is as follows. If the last 2 or 3 times things turns, and whether up or down, they'll take that and run it all the way out. And so right now they're seeing enrollments go up to like 8,800, but then drop to 8,400. And it's all due to the birth assumption. And they keep letting births drop. There's no reason for that. There's no justification for it. Births are dropping off the cliff in a lot of school districts that don't have housing going on. And that's the baby boom, echo boom stuff, which was handled two studies ago. Did a deep dive into the age structure of North Allegheny and the women and the odds of having children across the age spectrum. As with every place else, there's delayed childbearing. It's borne out. We've got drops in the teenage groups and movement over to the 30s. So I just wanted to let you know a couple of things going on, at least from my perspective as a modeler and one who does simulations. I believe, and I put that in the report, that the state's made a mistake. And this data that you saw recently on the board here, it's the same thing. Had the births dropping down, and then some time later you'll get the enrollment dropping down. But if the births don't go down, you won't get that. And that simulation is here. So a couple other things just off the top. Total fertility rate, which is the average number of children a woman will have in her life cycle, has been 1.71 to 1.79 for 40 years. In the most recent 5-year time, or a couple of years' time, it dropped to 1.6. White, if you take the Hispanics out, has been constant for that 40 years. And even though Elon Musk thinks that we'll lose population and become extinct, but my students used to run that until you run out a couple of thousand years for it to reach total equilibrium. So they don't go very fast to get generations of outcomes. The other thing is, I had that, if you look at the prior study, I've documented in 5-year age brackets where the baby boom was, and it's having children up, ironically closer than you think. And then the baby bust as it comes through, and it's come through every district and every state that I know of. And then the echo boom, and now we're in the echo bust. So that's what's happening generically around you demographically. But much of that goes to the wayside when you start bringing in housing. Now, housing can fit one of two ways: as an embedded housing effect, that is in the so-called ratios, retention ratios. They are not survival rates because they're over 1. So I treat them as embedded. That's what you have to take into account. How do you interpret what's happening there? The answer is it's basically, if it's over 1, it's a net migration coming in. And if you look at the birth to kindergarten to grade 1, you see pretty heavy effects. I believe it's 1.06 births to kindergarten, then 1.16 kindergarten to grade 1. Those are big time effects. If you look at those cohort ratios, the last time out we did that, you saw 1.16 from birth to kindergarten, and then 1.16 again. That was a mistake. So it's the worst mistake I've made that I can think of in a long time. I used the actual data and believed it didn't scrub it, if you like, to make sure it was robust, and made that mistake, and now we've corrected it. So if you look at table 3, I think it is. Yeah, can somebody put up 3? That's the actual forecast.
Yeah, that's what, we didn't have table 3, and they have it in the report, we don't have it in the slide.
Okay. Well, if you go to look at it, you'll see those down at the bottom of 16 to 20 compared to 20 to 23, the most recent. The birth to kindergarten is 1.086 now. It was likely 1.06 5 years ago, and it was listed as 1.16. So that was a parameter assessment, and one that's where you got 500 students coming in, and we know that's not true now that we're halfway there. But what happens with these two, 1.086, 1.16, is you get enrollment moving upward very gradually and not bottoming out. So in my 10-year forecast, I do not say that this enrollment will drop down to 8,200, 8,600, whatever you want. But it will climb toward 80, 8750, something like that. Now, I think of it as there's a 9,000 student barrier, and North Allegany's never hit it yet, but they are edging closer. And elementary at 3,800, same thing. So in this case, what happened is we had, with the bias parameter I told you about, we had elementaries exploding, sort of. But that ain't gonna happen. But instead, what's gonna happen is elementary is gonna stay fairly constant. Your high school actually may grow 100, which will be the first time in 2 decades. And your middle school will grow a bit too. So the growth will be in middle and high school going forward for the next round. At least that's my forecast. You can see over here, let's see if I can just have a light on.
And it's right behind you too.
Oh, okay. See if I can go down. Where am I?
I think he was talking about summary, a summary page where he went over the.
Yeah, you may have to do it here. Okay, right here is good. The forecast says that, if you read the script on the bottom, that, we're gonna take observed births that we know about. We can run those out 5 years and send them to kindergarten. And then send the rest of the kids to grade 1 once they get them full time. And that's in here. But what it says is you'll have +7, -38, I believe it is. Let's see here. -37 at the elementary, then +7. The middle school is forecasted to be growth of 100, then a loss of 40, so net 60 by the time 10 years rolls around. In your high school, +91, +16, 100. If you look over to right, you'll see it goes from 2761, 2868, about 100. Okay. You look all the way in between, bloody things constant as can be. High school is like a rock, it just stays there, solid. This is the first time I've seen it bump very much. All the work looking backwards. So that's what's new, if you like. If you look at table 3A, I guess, okay, it's not in our set. But if you go to the original, the study 25, you'll see the 2 parameters I'm talking about at the bottom of the last 2 rows. And the skewed one is the left side of that. Don't believe it. Toss it out. And then look at the new stuff, which said replace it with 1.086, which is a nice growth. What that means is that you've got net migration of students coming in, 9%. 1.086 is 86%. Right? And then you're going to follow that with a K to G1 of 1.17, another 17%. So you've got 2 heavy-duty hitters here moving things along, and even with that, elementary school is not going to grow, at least this round. So that's the good news, I guess, is won't be necessary to build a new elementary school. At least not where the growth is taking place. So, I guess the thing to do now is at least to look at these numbers, or these numbers. I can do a jig of some kind, but it won't be very entertaining. You can see the middle school, 6 to 8, doesn't have much growth at all. 2022 out of 2887. Over here at the elementary, we're 30 off. Basically, the elementary is going to sit still as the students rotate through it this round. At least that's my projection. And pretty good, except that screwy number that I told you about with the parameter misspecified. Okay. So we're talking 8,756 at Y10. So my forecast is it's going to edge on up. Won't hit 9,000 this round, but it's going to inch closer. And if births do not turn down, which I do think they won't, you'll probably hit it next round. It depends on the housing. Okay, let me now bring in one other thing and then I'll be quiet and you got questions if you've got. How do I deal with housing? We try to enumerate all the housing permits that are issued and all the housing construction that's gone on. We've done that for all 3 studies. Then how do you bring it in? Well, have to establish a baseline. This is what's happening now, and you won't get any direct impacts from housing unless the number of homes built gets bigger than that. If it gets bigger than that, you'll get that exact direct impact, however much bigger it is. So that's how you bring the houses in. Then you have a student housing ratio, which says how many students go into these new homes. Those are empirically estimated off your data. So now we know the students that are coming in, right? And then we have to distribute them across educational levels. They don't just come in and jump in a seat somewhere. They have to go to the right proportion. It's about 50% elementary. I don't recall the exact numbers for middle and high school, but out of the students that come in, you divvy them up into their year and their level. And then you merge it with what you've got with these retention ratios, births, and you've got a direct impact from housing. If you don't go over the baseline, I'll mention that in a minute, then your retention ratios have embedded growth inside them. That is, you don't specify the houses per se, but it's definitely a housing effect. Now, the students may come into a new home or an old home, can't specify that, but we know that's mainly driven by new homes. So I guess that's pretty much the bottom line from my point of view. I think there's a lot of great things going on. Just that 9,000 ceiling sitting there wants to hit it, but it can't seem to do it. On the other hand, 8,600 is more likely short term, and then in that vicinity. I do not see it dropping to 8,200. Do not see it drop much below 8,600. And you have to find out the root cause of where those projections come from. I believe they come from a mistake on births. You plug in the wrong birth and you keep plugging it in at a decelerating pace, you'll get some big effects. And the state tends to do that. But then they've got 499 other districts to deal with. So what happened in North Allegheny this round for housing? Well, you've got a lot going on. And I think that's in the report. You've got an average year. So I put together 3 yearly groups just on eyeball. So the thing that matters is the average per year inside those groups as you look at it. Because that takes away the fact that one's got 6 spots and one's got 4 or 5. So it's already weighted. And this round, you can see 79 is your average. Yeah, I'm gonna quit here. 79 is not sufficient to jump and do direct impacts. So if you don't go over the baseline, then the embedded growth is taking care of everything. If you go over the baseline, like Marshall, if anybody would be doing that, would be Marshall this round. But they're not there either. And so the big amount of growth expected just came through in that wave. And the specification on how many houses were built is there. And the average per year is there, and it's very clean. Started 175, then went to 79, then went to 209, I believe it is, the high, and then went to the current one. So we basically got our impact without having to delve too much. So I'm done, I guess.
I'm done. Stay right here for questions, but I'm just going to kind of wrap it up and then we'll ask some questions. So, yeah, and one of the things that this demographer report versus our internal one does take into consideration, internal is using a lot of the state data, as Mr. Stuman had said, where you'll see some of the projections go down. Mr. Stuman looks more of a macro of what's really going to take place at North Allegheny specifically. And that's where he's coming up with his numbers. And again, the whole purpose of this was more so of, is there any, with the construction that's taking place, is there going to be any additional need for space at the elementary level within the next 10 years during this time frame? And as Mr. Stuman has said, which is a more conservative approach versus internal numbers from an elementary student, he still has us staying relatively stable, just going down a tick over the next 10 years. Is that a good summary?
So,
All right.
good job.
And if there's any questions for Mr. Stuman, we'd be more than happy to take.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stewart, for your presentation. Do any board members have any questions?
Sorry, I can't.
Mr. McClure?
Thank you. I'll follow up on what I had asked during our report earlier. And there is an interesting correlation, and I won't get into the numbers again, but our increase now to 8,600 students from 8,190 back in 2012 is neatly correlated to the reduction in parochial and private school students in our area. And I suppose this is a societal question. Is this a trend that you're seeing that would impact us? Has that trend reached its bottom if that's the case? I think there's probably a lot to do with the reorganization of the parochial schools. Having attended grade school, in Catholic grade school, had they changed it all and made me take a bus somewhere else, I probably would have ended up in the public school. I'm wondering, has that, am I understanding this with any reasonable accuracy? And what do you think about that? Is this change going to continue, or is it going to level off?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, as long as you have North Catholic and Central Catholic pulling good athletic teams and so on, I think North Allegheny's going to have to scrum with them. But I mean, it is true the Catholic education is under reevaluation in general because of church attendance. And so they rejuggled stuff, renamed it, and are on a new role here. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but I don't think they're coming back. And question is, how far will it go? In every district I see, occasionally you see one miss a year or two and then jump back and hold its own, but generally they're losing students, and they come into NA, I think, and other places wherever they live. But that's not the main attraction here. I mean, you do have a great athletic program, and you have a great academic program. So there's people wanting to come in, as long as you spot new homes, like 1,000 new homes if you like, you're gonna get those filled up. And the question is, how many students are coming with them? And we have an estimate now that we've looked at. I think it's about 1.1, let's call it 1. So if you put 500 new homes in, you might get an impact of 500 students. That's what the student ratio is going to do. But that's all above the baseline. So this is where people make mistakes sometimes, and they just take, okay, you built 500 houses, let's stop. Build 100 houses, got a student housing ratio of 1.0, so you expect 100 students. Well, not quite. You take the baseline out first, and then anything past whatever the baseline is, you add students 1-to-1. So you've got a baseline that's putting a limitation on, you can't just kind of hone on a student. And we worked on that for a long time. I double counted for some years ago, and this is a refinement of that. It's a real pain, but it can be done. You just have to be very tedious about it as you take all these cuts. So the first cut is 1-to-1, and then, the grade distribution, and then a yearly distribution. The grade distribution, you plow those in and they then become the direct impact. This time, North Allegheny didn't get a direct impact because they were low on the number of homes built in the last 5 years. I mean, I know you don't think it's too low, but they're building pretty good in Marshall. But they were building in Franklin Park as well. And to my surprise, McCandless has some townhomes and stuff coming in. They just added a whole column of them, if you like. That surprised me. It all was born on 8/25/25.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much for the presentation. We really appreciate the presentation and the report.
Thank you.
And now we will move on to our student activities report. I would also like to thank our student representatives for joining us at 5 this evening for the tour, and then they had to hang out here until we started at 7. So thank you both so much for the extra time you put in this evening, and we would love to hear your activities reports.
Thank you, Mrs. Warren. The Diplomatic Club is preparing to host its first ever meeting on Tuesday, October 14th. The club leaders have been working to organize materials and discussion topics to introduce members to the goals and purposes of the new organization. The club will engage in conversations on international relations, diplomacy, and global cooperation while outlining future plans for activities and engagement throughout the year. In September, Best Buddy members walked together in the homecoming parade, proudly representing their club in
Don't go out this door when everybody leaves. You have to go out in the front. These are all censored.
They also met during an activity. To plan their annual match party at Sorgles, where students will meet their new buddies for the year in a fun and welcoming environment. The club also hopes to hold another activity period meeting to continue building connections through games and shared activities. Finally, the Nash Student Council's homecoming dance was a wonderful success, with 1,016 students in attendance. Stuco is gearing up for their annual canned food drive and is discussing future plans for the 2025-2026
Thank you, Mrs. Porter. Class Council organized NAI's largest homecoming dance to date with 1,072 students in attendance. The event also offered volunteer opportunities to 85 students who helped with decoration, setup, and cleanup. Following the success of homecoming, other student groups have also been making strides this month. One of the newest additions to NAI's extracurriculars is the Mock Trial Club. Its focus is teaching members how to succeed in mock trials and giving members a chance to participate in mock trial competitions. At their last meeting, they learned how to prepare a case for trial and identify strengths and weaknesses in each case. The club has started to form teams for their first tournament in November. They meet twice a month and plan on hosting mock trial tournaments 3 times a year. Meanwhile, the speech and debate team has also had an exciting start to their season. The speech and debate team had their first meeting on September 17th. Even this early on in the season, 14 members had already competed at the Yale Invitational Tournament, with many placing in the semifinals and octafinals in their events. As a result of the strong performance this season and at last year's state championships, 17 students have already earned one of the 3 bids required for the state tournament. Also, the team participated in the upcoming parade with the theme Inside Out, featuring candidates Angela and Anish. Nearly 100 members participated in the parade. The team is currently preparing over 80 new members for the Western PA Novice Tournament on October 25th. Upperclassmen will judge rounds, gaining volunteer hours while supporting novice competitors in their first tournament.
Thank you both. Now we will move on to our curriculum report. Ms. Hardy.
Thank you, Mrs. Werner. This evening in the curriculum report, there are 6 items for board action in 2 weeks' time and 1 item for information only. The items for board consideration this month is a goal trip to Chesapeake Bay for the middle school students, a speech and debate trip to Dallastown, Pennsylvania, a speech and debate trip to George Mason University, a high school orchestra trip and adjudication to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and the high school choir trip to Rutherford, New Jersey, and then finally the Camp Conakry honoraria. And the information only item is details 3 student teacher requests for the school year.
Thank you, Ms. Hardy. Are there any questions or comments on these items? Ms. Hardy?
I had one comment. Thank you so much, Mrs. Warner. I just wanted to say thank you so much to the 58 teachers, nurses, and paraprofessionals who gave their time away from home and family to teach and supervise the 5th graders at Camp Conakry this year. This beloved experience simply wouldn't be possible without their willingness to join in the fun, and we're incredibly grateful to them all for making it possible for our students.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we move on to the finance report. Mr. Weniger.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. This month, there are 3 items that require board action. They are the accounts payable list, the budget transfers, and the student expenditures for August. And there are 2 information-only items. They are the ending cash balances for September and the September forecast.
Any questions or comments on these items?
No, the only comment is for the September forecast. We're still projecting a $600,000 deficit this year. So hopefully we can get some positive news coming out over the next couple months to get that back to 0.
Okay, anyone else? All right, then we move on to the human resources report. Ms. Britton-Dozier.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. This month we have 10 voting items in the HR folder. The items include a confidentiality agreement, resignations and retirements, appointments, wage and status changes, leave of absence, confidential agreement, professional contract, honoraria and club activities, supplemental contracts, and consultant agreement.
Any questions or comments on these items?
Just a thank you to our departing employees for the time that they have served our district.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one, we move on then to Mr. McClure and the property and supplies report.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. I'm not sure if you can hear me. I'm not sure if this is on or not. But anyway, we only have 3 items for consideration next week. Number 1 is the acceptance and confirmation of an agreement for purchase and delivery of natural gas. The second, acceptance of confirmation agreements for purchase of electricity. And the third being school bus purchases. And yes, I have comments. The first 2, if you read the proposal, there's a lot of blanks in there. And that's simply because of the timing of the contracts. We are due to renew our contracts for the utilities, and this is a market-driven decision. We won't know the exact numbers until immediately before the vote next week. The third item is the school bus purchase, and this is a timing issue. Ordering school buses at this time of the year simply because we need to get the orders in, get the best pricing before it goes up. And there's also one of the buses is going to be a second handicapped with a lift, which is really kind of neat because we're going to have now 2 of these. So if the first one breaks down, but I'm going to ask Mr. Mergen maybe to expand on that just a little bit if he could.
Yes, 7 of those buses purchased are going to come from our capital reserve fund. This will be about $948,000. We had budgeted in the capital reserve about $1 million, so we're going to be slightly under what we had expected for that purchase. The wheelchair bus will be actually purchased through the transportation operating budget. This will allow us to claim this on our access claims for our expenditures. So we can basically use that amount to pay for the bus. We expect a pretty much return on investment for this bus within a year and a half. We wanted to get the second wheelchair bus because we don't have a spare bus if the one we have happens to break down or something of that nature. We tried to find someone who would rent us temporarily a bus should that happen for this school year, and we could not secure that. So this will allow us to bring a full route for our in-district students who require wheelchair service, and still have that second bus in the event that it would break down, as well as for any kind of athletic band or field trips that may need to go at the same time. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. McClure. Any other questions or comments on the property supplies? Dr. Gibbs?
So I just have a quick question about buses. So, you know, there's transitions going on in various places to move away from gasoline-powered buses to natural gas buses or electric buses. And is there any advantage or reason to look at that and to consider that as we're purchasing new buses for our district?
This is Mr. Murgatt's favorite topic.
I like this topic.
The main reason we are continuing with diesel buses is it's reliable, it's consistent, prices are the same. If you would move towards, say, a propane or natural gas bus, you would have to do a lot of upgrades to our infrastructure. You would need a way to store these different fuel types. You would need training on how to not only fuel these buses, but also to work on them. All of our mechanics would need a lot of training. As far as something like an electric bus, it's not a bad idea in the long run, but at this point in time, I don't feel that the technology is up to where it needs to be to meet our needs for our school buses. The buses simply don't have the range, and the charging time's not quick enough, and also that would require a lot of infrastructure upgrades as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, then we will move on to Dr. Gibbs and the Student Services Report.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. There are 4 items for board action this month. There's the Monson Institute Education Center Agreement, Bradley Center Agreement for Educational Services, there's a settlement agreement, and there's a community-based instruction agreement with Texas Roadhouse Holdings. There's one information-only item for 2 students that have requested student-teacher requests.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbs. Any questions or comments from you? From anyone else? Okay, then we will move on to the Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. This month, we have 15 items for board approval, professional seminars, professional development, North Allegheny Foundation trustees, letter of agreement with Positive Coaching Alliance, second read on the following policies: 137.1, 137.2, policy 302, policy 601, policy 602, policy 603, policy 604, policy 605, policy 304, retirement policy 304, 302.1, and policy 303.1. We also have some information items as well. We have first reads for policy 108, 126, 137.3, 138, 146, 146.1, policy 305, policy 307, policy 142, and policy 307.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on the Superintendent's Report? Okay, then we will move on to our speakers on non-voting items. If you would like to share your concerns on any topic, this is your opportunity to be heard by the board. It is not an opportunity for back and forth discussion. Please come to the podium and state your name and address, and you may address the board for up to 5 minutes if you are a pre-registered speaker, or up to 2 minutes if you are not pre-registered. If you've provided your address to Ms. Weidman when you pre-registered, or you have completed and turned in one of the speaker cards, are they here tonight? I don't know. Then you don't need to give your address at the podium. We have one pre-registered speaker this evening, which is Mr. Massett. Is Mr. Mathis here this evening? Okay, I didn't think so. Then we are ready for any, we can move on to our, any speaker who would like up to 2 minutes. Is anyone in the audience? Mr. Harrison.
Good evening, John Harrison, McCannell Township. It's always great going to one of these meetings where you have all the numbers. They show how the district is changing, not changing, where it's going to be. Back in 2012, this district went through, basically it was a war. There was a war between the district and the parents. And at that time, had we listened to what the demographer had said, we would have closed Peoples, and we would have needed to find a place to house 600 students. So when you sit there and you look at this, and I go to the township meetings, and there was a demographer there, and he said, housing is not affected with students when it's an apartment building. All I can say, and I just seen Libby's face, all I can say is go to, or we'll talk to transportation, and go to these apartment buildings that are across the district and how many students are actually in those buildings. Because if I'm a person from the outside coming in and I want a great education from one of the best schools in the area, in Western Pennsylvania, in the country, I'm gonna do whatever I can to get here. And my easiest way to get here is to go and rent an apartment. So when we're looking at these numbers, please look at the numbers deeply, because there's a lot of new apartment buildings that are coming in the near future in the district. We need to be ready for them. We need to plan for them. Because if we don't, we're going to have another Peebles situation, but we won't have any place to react to. So all I can say is do our homework before we do what we do. And all I can say is the board that was here then, the only one that's left standing is Libby Blackburn. And I thank her for her leadership in what we did to keep that school open. It's one of our prized possessions within the district that people don't understand. And all I can say is thank you for the board for what they did back then. And you guys do every day now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for up to 2 minutes on any topic? Seeing none, do any board members have any announcements or reminders this evening? Okay, then we are adjourned.
You're not.